Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie. Welcome back to our segment 2 here. We'll be going over our second segment here, which is going to be talking about the Phil Maton trade to the New York Mets. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link, gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get into the show for today. All right, so talking about our second segment here, which of course is going to be about Phil Maton and his trade to the New York Mets. So let's get into it. Now, this is a trade that broke last afternoon, right before the Mets started their game. I remember seeing the notification. I got a notification from the Mets because I'm a Mets fan. I have the notifications on social media, and I saw the Mets have announced the following trade, and I was like, oh, who do we get? I was like, oh, do we make a big trade? And no, it was Phil Maton. So I got a little, deeked out there, I will say. But it was nice seeing us make a trade. It was nice seeing that we are showing the initiative to add to this team, and I think it's a clear motive that even if we do not too great before this trade deadline, I think that we're not going to go fully selling. I think that we are going to end up trying to add at least as well. So I think that it kind of shows where we are and that they do believe in this team at least enough to add Phil Maton, a guy on a $6 million salary for this year, who they are eating the full salary of. So they're adding a reliever for $6 million. I think that it shows again that they at least have some hope in this team. And yeah, trading for Phil Maton, I don't think it was something that I saw coming, but it wasn't out of the blue. I mean, I remember reading the offseason that there were a ton of rumors involving Maton and the Mets. I thought it made a lot of sense as well. He's just a good, solid middle relief arm, and he ended up signing with the Rays, of course, on a one-year deal with an option, and now the Mets just trade for him, around 5-6 months later. So, yeah, my overall thoughts on this deal were, again, I think that it was overall a solid addition for this Mets team. They really just need bodies in that bullpen. If you were watching the game last night, they were up like 8-2, and then it became close because the bullpen was so bad. They ended up having to put Diaz in the game to save it for one out, and just, man, the bullpen the Mets have right now is so bad. They just placed one of their better relievers, Reed Garrett, on the IL actually about 10 minutes ago while I was on stream. I just saw that, so I knew I was going to mention it in this segment as well. So, yeah, just, man, this Mets bullpen kind of a disaster right now. It's really one of the big reasons why they haven't fully taken off, even with all their streaks in the playoff ranks. So I think adding Maton is a very solid buy low signing. You look at his stats overall just on the surface. They aren't that great this year, but you look a little deeper. You've seen in his last 11 appearances, he only given up one run. He's done much better. He's done much better mixing his pitches, using them to his advantage. And, I've always liked his slider a lot. I thought he had a good mix of pitches for a relief arm. And, yeah, I just think overall this is a very nice buy low addition for this Mets team, getting him for cash considerations or a player to name later. And I think that overall, again, this is just a very solid addition, a very good signing, and that, yeah, just it's a very, very nice addition to this Mets pen. I think there's a lot of upside here with Maton. And right now, again, this Mets bullpen just needs some arms, just needs some bodies, and being able to add one in Maton, who, again, has a good track record on competitive teams as well, playing for the Astros, playing for the Rays, playing for Cleveland. Competitive teams. It's a very nice addition. Obviously, the Mets like what they saw in him, seeking him out in the offseason, seeking him out now with the trade. So, yeah, I like it a lot, and I think overall it was a very good, solid addition to this Mets team. Now, for the Rays side, again, a second trade in those amount of weeks, really, that they have dealt with a veteran pitcher. Aaron Savali, of course, that was my main segment whenever he was traded last week. I'm not sure when that was. Traded to Milwaukee, of course. And so that's now the second time the Rays have traded a veteran pitcher. So it is going to be interesting to see what decisions they do make at the trade deadline for their own team. I don't think trading Savali and Maton are really signs that they're going to be buying, that they're going to be selling. I don't really think it's really anything in either direction. I just think that both players were not doing great as they expected them to once they picked them up. Of course, Maton being a free agent signing, Savali coming over in a big trade last deadline. Both had not done as great, and the Rays are a team that does not like to carry around dead weight. They have a lot of good players on their roster, even though there aren't superstars. They have 25, 26 good players on their roster always. And when a guy doesn't perform as he's trying and he's not a superstar, I mean, obviously you could look at Randy Arozarena and say that, he's not performing well. Why don't you just dump him? Well, because Randy has a superstar track record. Obviously, you're not just going to dump him. So you get what I'm trying to say. But yeah, looking at it from the Rays side again, I think it's just getting out dead weight, trying to get players opportunities. Shane Baz was coming back from the injured list when they traded Savali, so that was easily shown why they did that there, open up a spot for him. Apparently the Rays have a lot of nice young bullpen arms in the minors that they like. Apparently one guy, Edwin Uceda, who's bounced around from waivers and waivers really his career teams like the Mets, Diamondbacks, Dodgers, but the Rays apparently really like his stuff, so he could be called up in exchange for Maton. So I just think it was a good addition, but I think it was a good move by both teams. Mets a good addition to get another body in that rotation, in the bullpen, and the Rays to filter out a guy who they signed to a pretty decent contract who just hasn't done great, and I think it was time to move on for both sides. So, yeah, I think it was a pretty solid move for both teams, and I liked it. I thought it was good for the Mets, and again, the Mets at this deadline really just need some bullpen help. They have 6 or 7 guys for that starting rotation that can make start to very quality. I mean, Senga's coming back soon. You got Severino, you got Minaya, you got Quintana, you got Scott, you got Budo. That's 6 guys right there that probably are going to be in that rotation and are very solid. You have Brandon Sproat, who could be even up. You could even have Blade Tidwell, who are up. Those are 2 top prospects. Those are 8. You also have some other guys in the minor leagues as well who can start. I would have said Joey Lucchesi, but of course he was DFA'd for Maton. So David Peterson I'm forgetting. Tyler McGill I'm forgetting. So right there I just named 10 guys who you could have start for the Mets, and I feel confident about it. So obviously they have a lot of starting pitching depth. They don't really need to add a starting pitcher. The lineup is pretty great. I mean, your lineup should pretty much be set once it's healthy. You're going to have Francisco Alvarez, Pete Alonso, Jose Iglesias. Yes, over Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil is a disaster. Mark Vientos, Francisco Lindor, Brendan Nimmo, Starling Marte, Harrison Bader, and then JD Martinez. So this Mets team is pretty much set, but they need 2 or 3 relievers in that pen to really help them out. And I think if they get those guys, I think really they could be a fantastic team. I really do think that they could overall be a very, very good team and really end up being a true competitor. I think really that's what's holding them back right now. And adding one of these guys in Maton, a Bilo addition, who you obviously have had interest in the past, I think is very solid, is a very good addition. And I'm very interested to see what he is going to do here in Queens. Very interested to see what the decisions are made by the Mets at the deadline to help him out. And yeah, I think just overall, nice signing by them. They need bullpen help at the deadline. Please get it. As a Mets fan, I'm begging you. Please, it really would help. I cannot watch this bullpen anymore. Just watch the condensed game of the Mets game on the MLB YouTube app. If you didn't watch the game last night, you don't know I'm talking about the bullpen. Man, it was rough. Whew. So, yeah, will be interesting to just see overall, again, what happens with this Mets team and just what the decisions are made at the deadline. Same with the Rays as well. The Rays are a very interesting team. I'm not exactly sure if they're going to buy, if they're going to sell. I think they could kind of do both. They might ship off some arms like Zach Littell, Zach Eflin, who are expiring not this year but next year. So it's kind of putting in both, getting prospects back, but shifting out money for next year, stuff like that as well. So will be interesting to see. And yeah, just Rays and Mets, 2 very interesting teams to follow as the trade deadline does get closer. And believe me, as soon as the All-Star break ends, you're going to be getting just a ton of content about the trade deadline. That's really going to be talking about till it comes to it. So yeah, that was our second segment here, talking about Phil Maton and his trade to the Mets, just going over it and just talking about for both teams what it means for them. And yeah, going into our third segment here, which is going to be talking about the San Francisco Giants and their trade deadline and just what decisions they have to make, buy or sell, that kind of thing. And yeah, just going over it, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks and bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college